So, of course, we are going to get into Monday Night Raw in just a little bit, but how could we even start any kind of chat about wrestling today without referring to that CM Punk interview? And this is what I want to say, because I did a tweet about it and then I deleted it, because as always, things get taken massively out of context. I don't know what's true. I don't know what's not true. I would hazard a guess that this is his side of things, CM Punk's side that is, and that's exactly how he sees it. But, of course, if somebody from AEW wants to come back and say, no, we view it totally differently, that's how the world works. And I think the phrase is always there is my side, your side, and the truth, because usually everything meets in the middle. But I think when this kind of information does come to us, we do have to be somewhat responsible and hold our hands up and realize, hey, you know what? I don't know unless somebody is there, only they know. So I'm not saying that you should take it as a form of entertainment, but I am saying no matter what I'm about to say, ultimately, nobody knows the deal, and you have to decide what you do listen to and what you don't listen to. Now, when I do watch these things, I watch it predominantly as a fan. And as I have said since day one, it's really important to remember that these are real human beings. They have thoughts and they have feelings and they have emotions. So you shouldn't go too crazy and go, because that's absolutely ridiculous. But again, just sitting there as somebody who enjoys sports entertainment and pro wrestling, I thought it was compelling, I thought it was fascinating, I thought it was interesting, and I thought there was loads of things that we could take from it. And yes, in terms of what usually sets the internet alight, there was a lot of, I suppose, quote-unquote, AEW versus WWE stuff. Now look, if somebody from All Elite Wrestling wants to respond to this, that would be absolutely wonderful for me as well, because again, I get more details about it. But all I know, and again, I'll get into the specifics in a little bit, but I want to talk about my point of view for a little bit, and that is all I know is that I really like WWE and I really like AEW, and ever since that we have had a alternative, whatever you want to call it, I think professional wrestling has been better overall. So that is that. And again, it kind of ties into some of the things he said about Tony Khan. He's worked with Tony Khan. He's allowed his opinions, and I'm sure if Tony Khan came out and shared his opinions about CM Punk, so many people would be melting down as well. But ultimately, it is something you should definitely check out if you do have, I think it's an hour and 50 minutes or something like that. If you do have the time, you should give it a listen, because I think the greatest thing about it is that we do live in a world where people will sometimes, not everybody, but will give us this kind of access into their own brain and tell us, you know, what they think about things. Because it just sounds to me like if you go to work at AEW, maybe it's a little bit more freeform than WWE. Whereas Punk, when he's gone back to WWE, he likes the structures, he likes the professionalism, and he likes the fact there's a hierarchy there. Because then if something does go down, there's a very specific person that is going to turn up and say yes, no, buts, if, maybes. But again, maybe that does happen in All Elite Wrestling, and we do not know. Now, the best thing for everybody would be if the security camera footage from All In was released. I am, of course, joking. Don't do that. Nobody needs it. Things are crazy enough as it is. But, you know, there were tidbits in there about Vince McMahon. There were tidbits in there about his relationship with Triple H, how Nick Khan is essentially the magnet for all of this. And that, man, it's the kind of stuff that got overshadowed a little bit, that even back in like 2020 or 2021, maybe, just maybe, he was going to go back to WWE. I think I'm wrong there. But the point is this, when the whole backstage stuff was going down, there were murmurings and maybe there was some sort of a handshake, but it didn't go any there because somebody decided it wasn't the best idea, or maybe Punk didn't want to go back. I do not know. But you'd have to imagine that when he did sign his first ever AEW contract, given that it sounds like the communication was a little bit more than maybe some of us were expecting, that they did have a chat. And he went to AEW, and what happened. And what I would like to do is, what I hope happens anyway, is that CM Punk can now move on, which certainly seems like he is doing, in the sense he's doing great work on Monday Night Raw, and that AEW can move on too, because I totally believe they're doing great work as well. And I think it's a fair criticism to say that sometimes you can sit down to a Dynamite or a Collision or a Rampage and think to yourself, well, it is a very random match-heavy show, like a Collision especially, like where does that come from, and where does that come from? But I like it, and I do, and I love what WWE is doing. I do, because again, they offer me something different. So what match did I see this week? And I was like, man, that's right. It was JD Drake versus Kyle O'Reilly. I was kind of watching it going, why does this even exist? But I just enjoyed it for what it was, because it reminded me that Kyle O'Reilly is an absolutely superb worker, and it reminded me that JD Drake is severely underrated. Now look, my personal preference is that as many stories as we can inject into a pre-match, whatever you want to call it, the better. That's just what I like. You know, it was the same when it was WCW, it was the same when it was WWE or WWF, it was the same with ECW, Ring of Honor, Impact, New Japan, whatever it is. If there is just a little bit more story that I can sink my teeth into, I find myself enjoying the match more. But as I have learnt time and time again, especially since AEW was born into this world, you can give me some crazy stuff like Will Ospreay versus Powerhouse Hobbs, and something inside me goes, well, I can't wait to watch that. And I get that you're already in the comments going, Simon, their rating sucks, and Simon, they're not doing very good attendance. That's a different conversation for a different day, because I think especially when it comes to TV ratings, they're doing more than fine. I don't have to worry about that stuff. I'm just a fan. I'm just a bald guy that puts on the grappling, and I like what I like, and I don't like what I don't like. And even though people still send me stupid messages, Simon316 on social media, saying, Simon, you like everything, it's predominantly ups and no downs. It's not actually true if you listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. But if I get like a 2-minute segment, or even that, like a 30-second segment, excuse me, and it doesn't do much for me, I'm not going to give that a down because it came and went so fast. What is even the point? But I think it is massively, massively good that we do have these two alternative brands. Because look, I was a massive TNA and Impact fan, but one of the foibles they fell into is that every now and then they would just feel like WWE Light. And you would watch it and go, well, if I'm going to get WWE Light, again, we got WWE at home, right? I don't need it at home. I can put it on my television set. But I would love it if more wrestlers did do these kind of interviews like CM Punk did, where he does give all of his thoughts and feelings on everything going on in the wrestling world right now. And he even talked about the fact that he signed his contract before Survivor Series, like 10 minutes before he walked out there. He was driving to the arena, texting or voice texting his family saying, not really meant to tell you this, but you're about to see me back on television. And that, it all came together within the first, the 5 days before the pay-per-view premium live event. And that's absolutely mad. And I think that kind of summarizes the lightning rod that CM Punk is. It's like a Craig David song, right? He can get called on a Monday. On Wednesday, he's talking to Triple H. And on Saturday, he is re-debuting in the Union Center, whatever it's called, the Rosemont Horizon back in the day, in Chicago to a thunderous pop, which we all enjoyed, right? We got a massive, massive adrenaline rush from that. I'm sure it was 10 times as much for him. So even though he did leave AEW under somewhat controversial circumstances, we got to experience that as well. And given that wrestling is all about moments, I always want to be in a position where this can happen. And no, I don't want people to fall out backstage. And I don't want there to be fights. And I don't think there should ever be a little bit of strangling. But that is personal issues that I enjoy hearing about because it's fascinating. It's like you're involved in a soap opera. But I can also compartmentalize it and go, you know what, I'm just going to put it over there. And I'm not going to worry about it anymore. Because look, surprise, surprise, there will be a lot of wrestlers who I'm sure were involved in a lot of these incidences that will have heard that and they will have been upset by it and they would have been hurt by it. And I'm sure that's the same for a lot of fans as well, depending on your viewpoint of CM Punk. But that's why we should always just, let it sit in your tum-tums for a little while and then just throw it away and move on to something else. But again, in terms of a piece of entertainment, very, very good, very, very interesting. And maybe we'll get more of these, I don't know. It was hilarious because 10 minutes after this, we had an angle with Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch, which is also kind of interesting because I really enjoy everything that Rhea and Becky have done so far. I think they've gone above and beyond, but that didn't do it for me for whatever reason. I thought it was a bit, I don't know, it just didn't hit home. But again, this ties into the wrestling brain. Sometimes you can be in the right kind of mood and something is amazing, and sometimes it goes completely over your bald head. Now, I didn't feel that way about Raw. I thought Raw was a very, very good show, and over the last few years, especially when it comes to SmackDown, WWE hasn't really gone too big before WrestleMania, especially because you get the Hall of Fame afterwards. I'm sure Roman Reigns and Cody and Seth Rollins and The Rock will all be on it and stuff, but I felt here is where we really doubled down because we start with The Rock. He comes out, he talks about the fact he tried to kill Cody Rhodes, talks about Mama Rose, and Roman Reigns comes out, and Roman Reigns turns into Vin Diesel from the Fast and the Furious. He was like, family, 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 family. You just know The Rock's going to dick him over, probably because of his family. And then we get to the end of the show. It is Seth Rollins versus Solo Sikoa, which they must have known they were going to get booed on that one. Seth goes, The Rock, I challenge you. No. Okay, Roman Reigns, I challenge you. No, you just fight Solo. But the idea of it, of course, was to let you see what would happen or what could happen on Sunday night, because it is indeed a Bloodline rules match. And as we did learn, what happens in Bloodline rules is the Bloodline rushes the ring. They totally stop you winning. So what the flub are you going to do? And look, we'll do a predictions video later in the week. But absolutely, Seth and Cody should lose that tag match so we can do Bloodline rules on Sunday. And that's going to create an absolute amount of jeopardy, especially because, again, we got the trucks talking about John Cena's face on it. What does that mean? And if you saw Stone Cold Steve Austin's Instagram recently, he did a reel where somebody magically had left a sort of crate of beer or basket of beer in his pickup truck. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be like some kind of Avengers thing where we're leaving presents for people, but it did raise my eyebrow because I'm pretty sure that Austin lives on a massive ranch and you can't just walk up to his pickup truck and leave a can of beer. But again, if we do get to WrestleMania Night 2 and Cena's there and Austin is there, maybe Sami Zayn does something or Kevin Owens, which you could do should you so want. And it's just an overbooked mess, which ends with Cody Rhodes winning. I think all of this will have been done very, very, very well because, again, Cody comes back, even though he wasn't meant to be on the show, not medically cleared. He punched The Rock in the face, and The Rock took a bump. I don't know why I'm such a nerd. I was like, oh my gosh, The Rock's actually getting physical, because it has been that long, and just when they're going to throw him through Al in the announce table, Roman Reigns is back. He totally lied to us. He didn't go home to write Paul Heyman's induction speech at all, and that's when the bloodline goes crazy and they whip everybody with belts to show you that they're absolutely screwed, and Roman Reigns is probably going to regain his championship. Now, that shouldn't happen. There's this idea on the internet by some crazy accounts that Roman Reigns should win because he's so close to breaking Hulk Hogan's record. What does that mean? So he's going to add a few more numbers. Who the hell cares about that? If it was the number one position, right, Bruno Sammartino, which is never going to be broken because he's held it for like 79 years, then I would get it. But he's just going to, move up the rankings one? Like it's a Mortal Kombat board and he hasn't even got to Goro? Why would anybody care about that? And I understand that people like twists and that people like swerves, but sometimes, man, I'm just repeating myself from other videos. You have to do the obvious thing. And the obvious thing is just, make Cody Rhodes the champion after all of his boys come in to help him out. That's it. That's all you have to do. Then you can have animosity between The Rock and Roman Reigns, especially if The Rock somehow costs Roman, and we can just go from there. The maddest thing I saw, I think somebody sent it to me from Reddit, whatever it was like, well, what do we do if Cody wins? What stories do we tell? You tell more stories. You think Roman Reigns won the WWE Championship the day the WWE was born into existence? No. You tell stories with Cody. And look, maybe, sure, this is the other criticism. Well, if Cody's champion, how can I root for him anymore? Maybe it won't work, but it will work because he's Cody Rhodes and he's so over it's ridiculous, but you just pivot. Triple H talked about this in an interview recently. They pivot for WrestleMania 40. They pivot all the time. They're always calling audible, so why can't they do that again? Now, it turns out I think I'm in the minority here, but that's cool. It's all about opinions. I don't think Cody Rhodes needs a long title reign. If Drew McIntyre beats Seth Rollins, I don't think Drew needs a long title reign. In fact, when we get out the other side of WrestleMania, not all of them, because that would go too far the other way, but making sure that some of our more credible titles do get changed quicker, just so that we can say to the audience, oh, hey, everyone's held their belts for 792,000 days. Well, now you can hold it for a month. Now you can hold it for 2 weeks. Now don't hot potato things, because then they do lose their importance, but it's absolutely something you can do. And if you think Cody Rhodes is a better babyface chasing the title, which has happened with many very, very successful babyfaces, by the way, you can kind of argue that Steve Austin fell into that bracket, which is also something I've talked about before, then that is what you do. Like you have an opening there with Gunther at some point, because now that Chad Gable and Sami Zayn are working together in a very over-the-top and emotional video that, of course, I liked, because we're just doing Rocky, right? The movie, not the actual Rock. You could have Chad Gable screw over Sami Zayn. You could have Chad Gable and Sami Zayn work together to screw over Gunther, in the sense that when Gunther does lose that Intercontinental Championship, even though he'd have the credibility anyway, if you really want to make sure that he is souped up, he can, like I say, absolutely walk away with his head held high and move right into the main event scene. And look, no one is going to blink anyway, because he has had such a good run with that title, but if you do want to give him an asterisk next to his name so he's still the absolute super villain, you totally can. Then Cody Rhodes can feud with him, and Cody Rhodes could feud with there's loads of people that I'm not even thinking about right now. You have to do the round 2 with the Roman Reigns and all those things like that. If it was 2007, he'd be fighting Kane. Because that's what everybody did, but you just have to line up your challenges. And some people think the fact that Seth Rollins referenced Plan B, which of course is what Triple H called the Shield thing when Seth Rollins turned on his band of brothers, means that Seth is going to turn on Cody. I just think that would be whack, man. That's so lame, and it's so boring. It is boring, because that is what WWE has usually turned their attentions to. So now that we have got back to a more simpler type of storytelling, I suppose, that's just what I want. I want the romance leads to get together. I want Frodo to return the ring. I want Luke Skywalker to, beat the Empire and all of these things, just that I can walk off going into Raw the next night knowing I got something very nice. And I tell you, I can't remember where Raw is now. Cody coming out as a champion, and I bet getting a hero's welcome, not only sums up the last few years that we have been doing since he came back at WrestleMania 38, but it will underline this new era that everyone is so desperate to sort of, I don't want to say coronate, it's a bit strong, but I do think a lot of it did start at WrestleMania 38 because there was so much going on there. Like Roman Reigns was already smashing it, right? He was already the guy. He'd already proven himself that this Tribal Chief character was the way. He was already on a pretty long title run as it was. Cody came back, which obviously has a whole WWE, AEW side to it, but also Stone Cold Steve Austin was all over that show, so a bunch of people tuned back in, and maybe they saw the likes of Cody and Gunther and Seth and Drew and whoever else, and they decided to stay. And actually, because I've talked about Drew a lot, I think he should win the World Championship too. He did this really, really cool video where essentially he said, I'm going to murder everyone, and he had a little scuffle with Seth later. Although, going back to the CM Punk stuff, it sounds like CM Punk's tricep is healing way quicker than expected. I don't think he's going to be able to do anything serious at WrestleMania, but could he get involved? Absolutely. So we need to keep our eye on this one as well. But I did like Raw overall. The scuffle between Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch was good. I like the fact that Asuka, Kairi Sane, and Dakota Kai got a win, even though it was against 3 random people, but you want to build up those WrestleMania feuds. And I just like the fact that Ricochet won. Like, Ricochet and Ivar had a really good match, like a really, really fun match. And Ricochet is in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, which is going down on SmackDown. We don't do it on WrestleMania anymore. I understand the Andre the Giant Battle Royal means nothing, right? It means nada. What does it even mean? It's empty. But if we give it to someone like Ricochet and then just put in a little stipulation, maybe you get an Intercontinental title match, maybe you, I don't know, it could be anything you want, right? Maybe you get a specific main event on a Raw. Like, it doesn't matter. As long as there's a prize there, and we do give it to Ricochet, and we do push Ricky, which kind of feels like what we're doing here. Like, the real major takeaway I had from it is that if new people are watching, they may want to see someone going flippy dippy doo-dah, and who is better than doing that than Ricochet, right? There are people maybe at his level, but I don't think anyone surpasses him, which is why I probably assume he did the 630 as opposed to the Shooting Star. Now, I'm sure he'll actually sort of change these up and do which one he wants to, depending on the night and day. But he looks so much like the Ricochet of old, and again, I know he's got way more in his locker. I think there's something to this, and that'll be awesome as well. We're also teasing everything with the Judgment Day post-WrestleMania with Andrade, and obviously Legado del Fantasma pissing off Damian Priest. Damian Priest now looks like he may cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase. Probably should have done it at the end of this week's Raw, to be completely honest with you. That is a plot hole with the Money in the Bank briefcase. You've got the Bloodline decimating Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes at the end of the show. And Damian's like, man, I don't know what to do. I'm annoyed that Santos Escobar is playing darts on my dartboard. Although let's not pretend that's not the most relatable storyline in the world. How many times has someone been using your stuff? You're like, man, you got to stop using it. You're pissing me off. So yeah, really good Raw. And I often find, as I've already said, that the Raw before WrestleMania is usually better than the SmackDown, just because it's sort of craved in when it is on a Friday night. But I'm super excited for that tag match. Again, even just seeing The Rock get a little physical got me super duper excited. Then you got the CM Punk effect, and Rhea and Becky is going to Rock. And we just got a Philadelphia Street Fight announced, which is going to be Bobby Lashley's crew taking on Karrion Kross's crew. Now look, I'll be the first to admit that feud hasn't been for me. It hasn't clicked at all. However, you put those guys on WrestleMania and just let everyone smash each other with weapons in Philadelphia, obviously ECW influence. It actually could be quite fun, and it's always nice to get people on the WrestleMania card. I was disappointed with what we did with Candice LeRae this week. I thought it was too fast, and I thought if we were going to keep doing these sort of quick hits, she probably should have been the one to have just been horrible again, but instead sort of Indy Hartwell and her couldn't coexist, and Maxine Dupree was able to get her revenge. But maybe we're going to team Indy up in this horrible place as well, and she's going to become an emotional abuser as well, which is essentially what Candice LeRae's new character is. And I think that would be okay because, you know, now Candice LeRae can convince her, see, you try to be a good guy, and it absolutely cost you. But look, Raw just zoomed by as far as I'm concerned. Didn't mind the Bloodline going 30 plus minutes at the start of the show, because I find everything they do, like I say, so damn compelling. And I'm always like, what's next? What's going to happen? And the fact that the CM Punk interview came out a few hours before that, it's a couple of thumbs up for me. It's just awesome getting all this information down the pipe, especially because it is WrestleMania 40 week. So it's something to get excited about. Now, of course, if you are going to Philadelphia and you see me or the What Culture guys there, make sure you do come say hello. Always appreciate that. But otherwise, like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the video on the screen right now. It'll be me talking about WrestleMania. Drop a comment below. Otherwise, it is grillandmind.com/Simon. You just go to Simon and get 10% off. These are the fitness supplements I use. I'm a big fan of them. Patreon.com/Simon316. Simon316 on Instagram and Twitter. Simon J. Miller on the TikTok, Simon Miller on the Cameo if you'd like a shout out. Maybe you want a WrestleMania one for some reason. Merchandise is Samson Athletics and Pro Wrestling Tees. But otherwise, this week comes once a year. If you are going, make sure you enjoy it. I bet you spent a lot of money, so you deserve to be entertained. But otherwise, thank you for joining me, my friends. See you soon.